Yes, this is a tramp that we did on the 8th of February 2007 up Lees Valley. We drove up to Lees Valley and then it's along the Puketeraki range. So what we did, we drove into the Whistler River, then walked up an old observation road to a ski field that never happened, and up onto a ridge to get up onto Chess Peak. And once we were on Chess Peak, we went along the tops and bivied out under Mount Pemba there in a saddle where the second red dot is. And then the next day we were going to go over Mount Pemba, around over Mount Puketeraki, around the ridge and drop down to the Tarn hut, and then come out down to the Ashley. And there was going to be a bike waiting for us, and Colin was going to ride back and pick up the truck and come back and get us. Well, that was the plan. It didn't quite happen that way. Dumping off the bike was the first priority, so that's what we did first. And there we are, we had to find a place to hide it so no one would see it, so we found some bushes there, chucked it behind there, and away we went. So we drove up the Whistler River and unloaded and got our gear sorted out and got our packs on and had a bit of a natter and had something to eat, and just got organised. Colin and I hadn't had much sleep, so we were charging up the old batteries, and away we went up the track. And there we are, just as we left, we're just looking back on the Lees Valley out there, and that's the road we came in. We drove in a fair way, and we got onto this old observation track, and it was pretty rugged. It washed out in parts, so we had to be pretty careful where we were walking, especially in situations like this. You know, it was pretty hard under feet, and you had to be really careful with foot placement. You wouldn't want to come a cropper down there. You'd certainly know all about it. Well, here's a shot looking back at Lees Valley. We've been going for about an hour, and then you turn the other way and have a look, and there's Chess Peak up there. So we had to walk across to that observation road. You'll see a little bit of a roadway over there before we got onto the ridge. But we had a bit of bashing around before we got to there. We had to go around for a bit longer and drop down to this river. And while we're there, we saw this dragonfly there, and yeah, it's about 6 inches long. It's a real monster. And then we were in the valley, and it was hot. There was no wind blowing, blue sky, and it was hard yakka. And it's good to cool off our feet in the river there. And we overshot the mark. We're looking for the sign to Chess Peak, but we got back onto it. Richard found it, so there it was. So we knew we were heading in the right direction. So so that was where we stopped and took on some water. Yeah, water was always a big priority there. There's no water up on the tops, so we all made sure we had plenty, filled up and drank heaps. I think I drank about 1.5 litres there, and so did a few of the other guys. Yeah, because you didn't want to dehydrate. And Richard had these tablets you could drop in and purify the water, but you had to get the water from the tarn because the tarn water's not too hot. Anyway, we weren't going to get lost. There was Richard pointing to the side again, so we're definitely on the right trail. And so it's time to eat up and drink up and get ready, because we knew what was coming. It was a hard grunt, that's what was coming. And there we are, we couldn't find the track, so we just bush bashed right up this ridge, and we met up with it later on. But it was hard going, it was so hot, and it was a bit of route finding skills going on. And yeah, while we were in the thick of the bush it was hard, and then it started to thin out a bit as we got higher, so it made life a wee bit easier, but didn't take the heat away. Anyway, we got out of the bush and we got back onto the track, so that was quite good. So we knew we were heading there. It all came a bit more straightforward. And so there we go. We're just heading away up get onto that trail. The heat was still pumping out and the sweat was pouring, and the packs were pretty heavy. And so that's about that's about what we're up to. And yeah, there's the Chess Peak there, and then so we had to get over to that final little road there and get up on it. And there I am pointing to the water and pointing to the peak there. So there was water up there with needlet, but we didn't actually get that water. And there we are looking back the way we came. Anyway, we got onto this slippery scree stuff we had to transverse over, and yeah, it was real sinky under your feet, but we got over there okay. And then we were off the track and we're up onto the ridge, so that was the exciting part was about to happen. That's not to say that it hasn't been exciting up till now. Well, John took the lead there, and yeah, it's started to steepen up quite dramatically now. You're away from any track or trail, and not that we're on it much anyway. And there's a big push up to the top, and yeah, so as we were pushing up there, I'd see how steep it gets here. It was relentless, and it was hot work and it was hard work. And then Richard noticed on his barometer on his watch, this super watch he's got, that the barometer was dropping and the weather was going to change, and it was quite dramatic changes. So we sort of had to deal with that, but we noticed this weather coming in behind us, but we weren't sort of focused too much on that because we wanted to get up on the top. But you see this shot coming up here when we had this rest. We had this lunch, and then you see the big cloud burst over there, and it wasn't long after that we heard the thunder, claps of thunder. But we weren't too worried about that because we just wanted to get up onto the top of this peak. But there's a shot of the basin. That's where they're going to put the ski field. And, well, the start of the ski field, the big basin up there, but they realised that Mount Hutt was far superior, so they didn't pursue it. But it must have cost them quite a bit of money to do their homework and to realise that it wasn't a go. And here we are, it's the last push up to the peak, and we're looking forward to this. Your legs are screaming out a bit, and it was hot, and the clouds were coming in behind us, and there we are, we made it. We summited out 1,938 metres, and so we had a bit of a rest, and someone left a horseshoe there. So hopefully that was going to give us a bit of good luck. But the view from the top was just absolutely breathtaking. Yeah, we're looking right out over the west, and you're looking down at the Waimak and the Esk Head and the Polder River and the Mount White Station, and it was just fantastic up there. In the winter this is all covered in snow, and it's not just the winter it's covered in snow. There's a big dumping about 3 weeks back. But oh, look at the views there, and it's as barren as, it's like walking on the moon up there. And we've got a few good photos coming up. So there's the Waimak on the left and the Polder River on the right, and that's looking down over to the west there. And now here, that's the Esk River, and yeah, that's all on the Mount White Station, and this is the station itself in Lake Letitia there. And it's just a huge, massive station. It must be pretty complicated to run that thing. Anyway, the clouds were coming in, and the weather patterns were quite amazing. Now, I'm going to talk about this weather pattern, because we had the storm coming in from the east, and we had a nor'wester on the west, and that was keeping the clouds back, and we were walking along the ridge. So it was like walking this tightrope, and yeah, it's quite amazing, actually. Yeah, we were in the sun, but the clouds were coming in from the east, and this east northwest breeze was just holding it back, and if it came over, we wouldn't be able to see a thing. But luckily Richard had a GPS, and we had a locator beacon, so we all geared up for safety. There's John there sitting there at the albino. Yeah, and there's looking back, this weather pattern really was quite phenomenal. We couldn't see a thing out to the east, and the thunder was roaring. And yeah, and that's the terrain we were walking on, so it certainly cut the old feet up, and there was no easy go, and there was no flat areas. You're either up or you're going down. So we had a few breathers along the way, because we've been going for about 7 hours now, and so we just had a bit of a rest. And there was Richard, his feet were cutting up real bad. Yeah, so he's putting a bit more tape on there, and yeah, couldn't do much about that. And yeah, and the weather patterns were just absolutely phenomenal, so we were sort of quite engrossed in that. Anyway, but the terrain was up and down all the way, and we always kept our eye out for animals, hoping that we'd see anything, because there's goats, there's deer, there's chamois, there's pigs, but we didn't see anything. We saw plenty of tracks, yeah, so they're certainly up there. Here's a good shot coming up here. Look at this. This is it's the Esk River, the Polder, the Waimak, and Mount White Station. Now, that's a classic photo. That's a really good shot. It just sort of shows you what sort of views you can get if you take the time to get up there. And here we are, skirting along the top there. We started to think about where we're going to bed down for the night. We've been going about 8 hours or whatever, and we thought, well, the more we go today, the less we have to go tomorrow. But you know, so much fuel in the tank, and because it was pretty relentless, up and down sort of stuff. and you couldn't see anything out to the east at all, so we haven't taken any photos there. This is the upper Esk, and that's more of Mount White Station up there. So it just goes on, and then yeah, there's that weather pattern again. But then look at this. This is what happened. The sun was shining over into the east, and John Chambers was walking along, and he was silhouetted into the sky. I don't know what took place there, but what an amazing photo. And here he is, yep, in the sky there, just looking towards the east, and he's just up in the clouds. Yeah, it's just a shadow was projected into this kind of rainbow sun, so yeah, it's quite phenomenal. And then, we had this bit of tricky climb. We sort of worried about how we were going to negotiate that, but we managed to get around the back of it, so that wasn't too bad. Yeah, so anyway, here we go. And then, it was bivvy out time, so we bivvied out. And yeah, we're all looking forward to this to chuck the packs down, but first we had to go and get some water. And we scampered down this creek bed, and we had to go quite a way, about 250 metre drop, and of course our legs were feeling a bit knackered then, but we found some water, and it was running free, and it was cold and cool, and it tasted nice, so it was worth the trip. So we loaded up there, and we headed back up with about a quarter of an hour walk, I suppose. And the time we got back, Colin he had plenty of water, so he had a couple of whiskies, so he was in a good mood, and we were about to join him. But then the sun started to go down, so I got this shot of the sun just going down over the ridge, and I went back about a quarter of an hour later, and got the same, almost the same position, and there's a bit of colour in the sky there. And then I went up on the ridge and turned right, and that's the photo I got there. That's an awesome photo. Look at the colours in that sky. That was pretty amazing. And then it was time to set up camp big time, and it was starting to get dark. So we put up the tents and the bivvy bags and got the mattresses out, and sleeping bags out, and just kicked back and relaxed a bit. There was a starry sky, the wind had dropped, and it was pretty good. So we were all just making ourselves comfortable, having a bit of grub there, and having a drink and telling a few silly stories, and just genuine relaxing. Here's Richard tucking into a sandwich, and then he pointed out that we had a little visitor came and sat on his pack, and yeah, well, look at that. So we got a shot of that, and yeah, just came in to say good day. And here I am enjoying my stuffed potato and can of baked beans. Tell you what, that went down a treat. And then next morning, Richard's feet were cutting up pretty bad, so and the wind was going to come up real strong, so we decided to head down. So I took off early to get a few photos, and there's a couple of the guys coming along behind me, and the wind really cut up bad. And then, oh yeah, Richard couldn't get a zip open, and oh yeah, you'd have to be covered up there, so they got that sorted out. And yeah, I was trying to get up to the top of Mount Pemba to take a photo of the Banks Peninsula, and there's the top of Mount Pemba there, and that's 1,714 metres, and that's looking out over the Banks Peninsula there. It's this cloud over the Canterbury Plains, and there's Banks Peninsula just sticking up over the tops. And there's John Chambers, he came up that's on the top of Mount Pemba there, and the wind, it was really blowing. Yeah, I don't know how many k's it was, you can't see it in the pictures, but it was seriously strong. You know, it wasn't very comfortable at all. Carry on, because it would have been 9.5 hours of total exposure, and the weather was to deteriorate that day. So it's just a matter of finding the right route down, actually. And there's Colin and Richard there sussing out on the map, because there's a few options. We just wanted to make sure we had the right escape route, and that's where we were. See, the top of that is top of Mount Pemba, and that's we came down that ridge all the way down, and we dropped back down to the road that we started with, and that's heading down. But it's a long way down. It took a few hours, and yeah, every time we went over a saddle, the wind just blew like nothing on earth. And there's John pointing out something out there, and yeah, it's a good shot. And there's Richard with the map out again, because it forked out this ridge, so just to make sure you got the right one, otherwise you end up in a diabolical situation. Now here is Banks Peninsula, and I'm zooming in because there's a low cloud over Christchurch, and if you just look very closely, right in the middle, you see the skyscrapers or the buildings sticking out through the clouds, so that's quite a classic shot. And here we are down on another one of those saddles, the wind is whistling over, yeah, trying to stand up against it. Yeah, it was diabolical. Anyway, so down we went, and yeah, we started to get a bit of growth, just a wee bit of growth on the ground there, and yeah, we had to stop to get out of that wood and have a breather. We had a bit of a feed, and yeah, so we're heading down there now. We're looking down to Lees Valley. You can start to see Lees Valley proper there, and yeah, it's civilization. Here we come. And we found this good scree slope, about 200 metre drop, you know, and it didn't take us long to get down there. It was nice, really nice underfoot. And there's a bit of rock formation, that's a bit of a classic stuff. Yeah, so we're getting into a bit of vegetation now, a bit of tussock, and I must be pointing to the helicopter or something. Disco dancing, something going on there. And yeah, and there we go, there's Lees Valley. There was a vast area, Lees Valley, and they've been really doing a lot of work there, top dressing it and getting it green. I don't know if they're growing crops or cattle. And yeah, and that's where we slept in that saddle up there. That's where we bivvied out the night before, but it's a good few hours away. And then it broke away into turpentine bush. Was the first time we saw it. Up north it's called something else, I don't know the name of it. And here we go, we've got onto this farm track, so made it a bit easier going there. So we're heading down there, we're not far from home now. And Richard's pointing out something there. Were these photos staged or what? And yeah, and there we're almost back at the car, and all our feet are just pretty cut up. It's pretty relentless on the feet up there. It's knocks them round, but well, the end was in sight. So all we had to do there was drive home. So that's where we were at, back of the car, all finished, completo. Then Richard decided to drive around a Cuckoo Pass on the way home. Well, that took another 2 hours, but that was good. But it was a good trip. We had a bloody good time. So, yeah, great stuff.